Excellent. Thanks, Carter. Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be here talking about an actual football game that's going to happen this Saturday, or Sunday, excuse me, this Sunday night. We've been really blessed over this past winter and spring. We've had great enthusiasm for this game. We are up to over 42,000 season tickets, which is the second most we've ever sold. We sold out all our student tickets as well. It's going to be an incredible environment. We have done a lot of work this past year with our in-game operations stuff that we hope that everybody enjoys. Put a big emphasis on that. And just making sure that this is going to be not only a loud crowd, but one that's going to help the Hurricanes move forward. And I think you see as you came around here, the emphasis that our marketing folks have put on wearing orange to help be a part of the environment for this Sunday's game. So really excited about that, excited about the start of the season for our women's soccer team, 3-1. Volleyball starts this weekend against Indiana and Ohio State. So a lot of great things going on here at the University of Miami right now. A lot of things going on in intercollegiate athletics. So instead of me taking this down a couple of different corridors, I'll just open it up for questions. And again, thank you guys for all the great work that you do on behalf and covering the Miami Hurricanes. It's very, very important to us, and we hope that we reciprocate back to you in giving you the type of information you need to be able to do your job.
Yeah, with 42,000 season tickets, you said 42, right?
Yeah.
So with that out, you can reasonably assume that every crowd's going to start with at least a 5 this year. With 8 home games, how critical is that?
I think it's critical in a number of ways to show how the program has continued to rise over Mario's 4 years here, and our emphasis on making sure that the environment here is one that people want to come to games, be a part of the Hurricane family. So yes, I think that there's a great opportunity for every crowd to be over that number, and we're excited, and that's why we put that emphasis on the things we're going to do inside the game, because it's one thing to sell a ticket to an event, but it's another thing to make sure the event is something that people want to come back to. Not only the product on the field, which we can control a bit, from that perspective, but we want to make sure the things we can control are under our purview, and we're doing the right things to keep people coming. So again, these 4 home games in a row are going to be a great test. I don't know what the over-under is on the amount of rain we'll get on some of those games, but I think you've all been in South Florida long enough to know that that'll probably happen. But we're excited about it, and I think the great work that Legends has done, our ticket sales operation, our marketing operation, that's got us to a point right now where we're standing here right now really excited about the movement forward.
And you said Mario's 4 years continues to rise. What do you see about that? What do you like about that? Where the program, particularly the football program, is headed?
Well, I think that Mario's created this football program now in year 4 really in his image, from the inside out, offensive and defensive lines. Those are things that are the cornerstones of successful football programs. We've had great quarterback play, great skill play. I think it's all coming together right now, and I think he feels very, very comfortable as he gets ready to take his team into this game against an incredible opponent with Notre Dame. But I think he has, as he's looked at the team from the spring practice through summer and through fall practice, he knows that there are players here now who understand the way he wants to play, how Shannon wants to play on offense, the way Corey has brought in his defense. I think all of those things have lined up here right now to give the head coach a really good feeling that moving forward for this year, we have a great opportunity in front of us, and the horses to be able to do that.
You're talking a lot about trajectory with season ticket sales and success on the field, 10 wins last year. Are you seeing a similar trajectory with booster support and giving to the athletics here? Is there anything you can share in that regard?
Well, last year, the year that ended on May 31st, our fiscal year, we raised more money than we had in the previous 4 or 5 years. It was a high watermark, okay? I think the highest number might have been in 2016 17 or 18. I might have the years wrong there, but that was when there was a real push to raise money for the indoor practice facility. So outside of that focus for one particular item, this past year was one when our donors were very, very good to us. And I think they were able to see off the success of last year, how our program is moving forward. So they bought in, and they're a big part of what we need to do.
And speaking of moving forward, the ACC settled with FSU and Clemson. Have there been talks already about, the future with Miami, with the conference, or is that something that's kind of right now on the back burner?
Look, we have said before, and we'll say again, we're incredibly proud and happy to be within the Atlantic Coast Conference. We're glad Clemson and Florida State were able to work out their differences to create the conference, a strong conference. Because what we've done over the last couple of years is something that I think is not been talked about enough, and what a leader the ACC has been in differential revenue distribution. A lot of people talk about that, but the ACC did it. They did it with the success incentives that were in place last year. They've done it now based off of that settlement moving forward with increased dollars based on viewership. The teams that are being watched and carrying the brand of the ACC forward are going to have an opportunity to make increased revenue. When you're talking about conferences which have always been slicing that pie equally, years and decades of conferences doing that kind of work. Now you have just this slight move to the side where there is some incentive for success. There is incentive to be able to schedule great so that you can have a marquee opponent that can get on an over-the-air network that could then give you a higher viewership number and you can make more dollars. So I look at that as all being very positive types of things that came out of the settlement. But hey, we're excited about the opportunity to compete for ACC championships in all of our sports.
There was a report about a week ago about possible college football playoff expansion, even more teams. How do you feel about the number where it's at now? Would you want to expand numbers?
I think as a league, we came together under the, as has been widely reported, the 5-11 circumstance. But as things move forward and there are other opportunities to look at different models, I think until something is etched in stone and the commissioners agree to it, we should continue to talk about it, because there are positives and negatives to each of those types of things that have been talked about. We get together as athletic directors probably sometime in September. The date hasn't been signed yet or assigned yet. So we'll talk about that, I'm sure. That'll be a focus of the conversation, because I think the deadline, if I'm remembering correctly, is sometime in December, where they have to pull together how next year's playoff is going to work, or it'll stay the same if they don't meet that deadline. But I think a lot of conversation this fall will go through that.
Can you provide an update on the Green Tree practice fields, the indoor facility, an update and maybe a timeline of what's to come?
It's all on schedule. That's what I got from my facility guys. So, it'll be late spring, early summer next year to be able to get in there. But everything has been on time. We've had minimal disruptions from the standpoint of being able to utilize the indoor facility and the outdoor field. The field that you see outside, the Green Tree field outside, is where the permanent 100-yard field will be. And of course, we were very fortunate. We did some things for our women's soccer team to allow them to have a practice area, but also football to be able to practice at the Cobb Stadium site as well. So kudos to our grounds team. They've done a phenomenal job of making sure both of those places are in great shape to be able to play for our student athletes. We put new lights on Cobb Stadium and Green Tree, new LED lights. So it's a much better circumstance out there than it was a year ago. But the project with the weight room and the expanded deal on time, everything's moving forward.
Any update on the football operations center? Anything you can tell us with that?
No, I think that, in our conversations with the campus, we want to make sure to get this thing done and get this thing done right, and then we can kind of move on to other things that could happen into the future.
Dan, with the House settlement money, I guess, what have been the conversations, going up and down, up to the university president and then talking to, the coaches about how that money is getting divvied up, how it's being utilized? It's what have those conversations been like?
Well, I think that you all know that President Echeverria is a huge supporter of the athletic program. So our ability to utilize that $20.5 million and how we spread it around, we've kind of put everything into those buckets. He is certainly given us the thumbs up to move forward in that direction. And then other opportunities that can come forward for our student athletes in different ways outside of that money is also something that we work together with our partners at Legends and other folks out into the community who want to utilize our student athletes' name, image, and likeness. So all that's going along very well.
How much of it is a conversation like on a relatively like recurring basis? Like does Mario or Jay Lucas come to you and say, hey, I need, X amount of money? Like, how
Well,
does
they're
that work?
coaches, of course they do, yes. Yeah, no, they do. And I think that we've kind of settled in where we are now. We're starting the process to move forward into the following year. So those conversations will be taking place shortly.
Dan, just how good broadly do you feel about the way Jay has, assembled a roster out of, from a clean sheet, basically? Trish had to redo almost her entire roster. JD was a game from Omaha. Soccer's off to a very good start. It's best start in a while. Just broadly, how good do you feel about where everything is right?
I feel really good. I do, because I know the coaches have put a lot of work in, and I think that you can only you don't have to look real far. You can look at what Mario has done with our football program and taken it step by step by step back up into a nationally relevant team. I mean, we're ranked in the top 10 in the country. Preseason. That's pretty good, guys. I mean, that's a positive. So that wouldn't have happened 4 years ago. All right. So you see that, and I see JD in baseball, how he's been able to, after the first year, understand a little bit more about what he really wants that program to look like. And of course, Trish and Jay, look, in basketball, it's a completely different game than the other two. I mean, you can flip your programs around on a dime. Now, I don't know a whole lot about the guys that have come in because we have no returning people on our men's basketball team and 2 returners on our women's basketball team. So it is going to be a little bit like Christmas morning, watching our basketball teams. But they all come from really great, the transfers come from really good programs where they were successful. The trick with basketball is how they're going to blend together. And I think that that's one of the things that in watching both Trish and certainly Jay for the first time, how they're communicating with their players and how those players are communicating with our administrators and our other student athletes and how they're blending in together. Those have all been very, very positive. So if you take that without a dribble of a basketball or a shot, I think that they're off to a really good start, but we'll see come November.
The ACC payouts for viewership, big numbers in viewership. Do you have a projection on what that number could add potentially for
they tried to do that, and once you dug into the numbers, you saw that it really wasn't valid, because the way it'll work is 35% of that pool will be done this year, okay, and then 25%, and then 15% if that adds up to 100, okay? Some, declining number away. So if you have a great year this year, which, we have some really good opportunities on national television, on big over-the-air networks, our number could be really, really good. I mean, last year we had the Florida game. That was a good number. But after that, there wasn't a whole lot of big opportunities for us. We have 2 this year. So it will be more if history kind of keeps on, is any nod to how the future will be, we will get more revenue associated with that, just given our brand and how we've played over the last couple of years.
To that point, though, how kind of, from where you said, just in terms of long-range budgeting even, it is kind of maddening. Like, the NBA is getting away almost entirely from Nielsen ratings. There's just no way of charting a lot of this stuff anymore in the streaming era. And like you said, it is, when you start taking that initial dive, you get very confused very quickly. How tough is that to accept that there is a lot of unknowns to that formula?
Well, Tim, you probably have and you've charted this and written about it, there's a lot of unknowns in our business right now from a lot of different areas. So the budgeting piece is just another one. It's just another one. And you have to be able to have good relationships with your institution, like we have here, because there could be years when you kind of thread that needle and you hit the budget right where it needs to be. There's going to be others where you might be a little bit short, might be a little bit over. So I think that, we have a great relationship, and that's where the relationships come in, because they understand, our board understands, our university understands that there's a lot more X factors associated with athletics than maybe there were 10 years ago, even 8 years ago.
What's your relationship like? What can you say about Canes Connection, the collective, and the partnership, and moving forward, and in the past, the work they've done to
Well, I know the collectives from some of my colleagues did not get a really good. They're not looked upon favorably. We've had a great relationship with the Canes Connection, and we continue to have one. And I think we will. They're going to be a big part of what we do moving forward. So we're in a fortunate position. There are others around the country who also have great relationships with their collectives, because our collective wants to do one thing: they want to make the University of Miami better. And make our student athletes have the opportunity to do what they can in this space of name, image, and likeness.
You see the ACC going to a 9th game?
God, that was pretty good. That was only 14 minutes into the conversation. I lost that bet. It could. We really could. That's one of the things that we're going to talk about in September. Not only the college football playoff piece, but is it right for the Atlantic Coast Conference to go to 9 games? The real question might not be, is 9 games the right answer? But are 10 power conference games the answer? Do you need to write down and really kind of hold to the fact that you're going to play as a member of this league 10 Power 5 schools during the course, Power 4, Power 5 schools during the course of a season? That's important, because I could play a team within the ACC based on the scheduling run, someone who's not having a great year, or I could go out and maybe have an opportunity to play one of those teams in the other leagues that has an in-state rival within their conference. They're rivals within their conference, and they're looking for a Power 10 conference game, and we can have a great matchup. And it could be home and home. And it could be one of those games where you can get a high level viewership that could help you along the way. So that's going to be something that we need to talk about, and that's going to be that, and the CFP formation conversations will happen the next time the ADs get together.
And that's kind of my next question. This is maybe the biggest opening weekend in college football history, or certainly one of them, with all these games that have been put together. As conferences do go to those extra home games or extra games within the conference, do you see these big cross-conference games kind of falling by the wayside a little bit? Like, would a Florida ever schedule Miami again?
It's a great question. I think that Florida has Florida State as they'll have 9 within the SEC, and they'll have Florida State. Would they want to play Miami? I don't know. That's a hard one for people who have in-state rivalries. Clemson and South Carolina, Georgia and Georgia Tech, Kentucky and Louisville. Those are going to be hard for them to go outside and create other great matchups. But there are a lot of schools: Auburn, Alabama, Mississippi, Mississippi State, Texas, Texas A&M. These are schools that they're inside the league, and they have that rival in their league. So they have the ability to go out and play another great rival. Or another great opponent to be able to help their strength of schedule, strength of record, and moving them forward as well. So more to come on that. I think scheduling has always been tricky, and we'll just have to continue to be even more vigilant with it as the opportunities change.
Do a couple more for Dan. Have you heard of, when you think about the FCS schools, Bethune's going to get a good check for coming here. FAM's gotten good checks in the past for coming here. Those schools need those games, and those opportunities are going to get harder and harder for those schools to find.
I think when you look at that, you play 12, and you're going to have 10 Power 5, Power 4 games. That leaves you 2 others. Most likely for those who are in a certain geographic area, those will be FCS games and a group of 5 game. That's kind of the formula that has been utilized over the last few years here and certainly at other places that I've been prior to here, to be able to get that FCS, the group of 5, and then the really good out of conference 1 or 2, 1 at home, 1 away in a given year. So you have 7 home games. That's the other thing. I mean, we have 8 home games this year. We have 6 home games next year. One of the things that myself and Dan Rabin work on an awful lot is trying to get that smoothed out. We want to get to a point where we're playing 7 home games and 5 road games. That's really what the goal is, and we're getting close, but we're not there as of yet.
And with baseball, have you determined how many scholarships will you allot to that sport?
Yeah, I believe the number in baseball for this current year is in the low 20s. Again, some of those numbers are, they fluctuate a little bit, given how people come in and people go. That's why I can't give you a real number, but it's low 20s.
Is that what you envisioned for, you said this year, but?
Yeah, I think it is. And then as we look into the future, we have to make sure our participation rates and numbers are from male to female are in a good spot as well. But I think that if you need a circumstance in a year where you may need 1 or 2 more, and then the next couple of years may need to be able to go back, you have the ability, I think, to do that.
Where do you stand? So conference championship games is kind of a conversation with potentially CFP expanding and regular season conference games expanding. Where do you stand? Are you passionate on either side of conference championship games continuing?
I think conference championship games have been incredible for the fans and be able to focus on that Saturday with all the conference championship games going on that weekend. That was a lot of fun. If the playoff expands and you have games that matter for the national championship on that particular Saturday, I think it's 50-50 at that point in time, because those are going to be important games. And how people and conferences go about putting their champion together, that'll be something that each conference does their own way. So I'm not that passionate about them. I like them, but I think there's also alternatives that we can look at.
Dan, 5 years from, look at all the change in college football the last 5 years, or college sports. 5 years from now, if you could put in one rule to settle the dust a little, is there anything you would like to see happen?
Well, it would be easy to say you'd love labor peace, to be able to look at it that way, but we're not there. We don't have our student athletes, under a circumstance where they are collectively bargaining. Okay, I would like to see something out of Washington to give the the Power Four, the NCAA, some limited antitrust liability protection, because I think that would allow us to move forward without the threat of other lawsuits coming forward. That would have been something really cool to have about 8 or 9 years ago, because we would have been able to move forward to the world we are today, maybe a little bit more in a process-oriented way, rather than just having a lot of things dumped together.
Right.
Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate it. We'll see you all on Sunday evening. Thank you.
Right, guys, good afternoon and welcome. Certainly, as you know, a ton of momentum and excitement and energy around here as we get ready for game week finally, right? After a great offseason, great camp. And so here for questions, so go right ahead.
Mario, where are you on twos and threes and finishing up the depth chart? And are there, I guess, how nice of a problem is it that you have or had competition at almost every spot?
You know, I don't think you're ever all the way there, but certainly a ton of progress. We feel a lot better about it. And, you know, some competitions will go all the way up until, you know, the Thursday, Friday of game week. But we do feel very confident in the guys that will be playing. You know, who goes first or who gets how many reps will certainly be determined the next couple of days. But we do feel very confident and comfortable with who's going to be going in and playing for us.
Or speaking of comfortable, confident, a game like this where you're the spotlight on the lights, big top 10 matchup, how much do you lean on Carson's experience to soothe things, calm things from the start?
Right, good question. I think when you look at our team, the makeup of our team, particularly the guy snapping the football, to the guy getting the snap, to the guy behind him, to the middle of our defense, the defensive tackles, the linebackers, the safety. The core of our team has experience. And we feel that when you have the type of game experience those guys have, the big moments don't faze you. They came here to Miami to have that opportunity, and Carson, of course, has been in a bunch of those. So he has had a great camp. He is, you know, he doesn't stop preparing like the rest of the team. The culture fit has been perfect. So we're just really, all his focus is on preparation at the highest level he can do it.
With how much waiting that he's been doing since the injury and then coming over and all that to getting into a game, have you seen that itch, that fire maybe getting a little bit more from him as you get closer to
You know, we're turned up pretty good around here, so, you know, we try to make every day like game day as much as possible. So I think some things naturally get turned up as you get closer and closer to the game, but it's not like a light switch where it's on and off, depending on who you're playing, when you're playing, or whatnot. We like to keep that thing on all the time. But his level of professionalism is truly impressive, and it certainly affects other people in a positive way.
Mario, obviously, you know, a long-time rivalry between Miami and Notre Dame. What were your experiences when you played against Notre Dame, and most importantly, was Cleveland Gary down?
Those were awesome experiences, right? You know, growing up, you know, wanting to come to Miami, you know, games like this had a lot to do with that, you know? We know the answer to that question, so we'll keep the focus on the 2025 Canes and Fighting Irish, but I appreciate that.
You indicated that you got out of camp pretty healthy. How much of that can you attribute to Irv Young and his program in the summer, or is it just kind of luck?
Probably a little bit of everything. You know, the thing that we've certainly reduced are the number of soft tissue injuries, so we've been able to just maintain a healthier team overall for the most part. I think guys are maturing as well. They recognize and understand the importance of nutrition, of rest. Like sleep is actually important. You know, putting down that phone, that blue light, getting off the game system for some extra rest, getting over and getting some hyperbaric chamber treatment and some red light, all that other stuff that we never had, right? The old ice tubs used to do the trick, if that. So, but I think our guys understand that. I think our medical staff, our sports science staff, and our strength staff together have worked diligently to put our guys in the best spot they could be in physically.
How do you handle the uncertainty that always comes with week one? I mean, they have a lot of guys back from a really, really good football team, obviously, but you don't know exactly what it's going to look like. And I'm sure Marcus Freeman saying the same thing about you guys. How do you handle the unknowns?
Well, a lot of notes, you know, certainly. That's why I like to have this area kind of clear with all the notes we have on these guys. It's an excellent football team, right? They got to the national championship, and the way they got there was probably the most impressive thing, because the resilience needed to overcome an early season loss like they did and go on, I believe, a 10-week, 12-week winning spree is impressive. And they did it with physicality, playing violent football, playing team football, but they have dynamic players everywhere. And they've made people pay the price. They play great complementary football. They lead the country in forcing turnovers. They lead the country in block kicks. And their conversion rate off of those turnovers and blocks have been off the charts. They are just, they're loaded with experience, big jumbo athletes, physical guys up front on both sides of the ball. They returned 11 starters, and the portal guys they got were starters at other places. So in terms of game one, what to expect, you know, you prepare your players to play within your system as best you can, and you dig deep into the stops of their coordinators, where they've been, right? They had to change at the coordinator spot, but they've had great success there. But you have to tap into Rutgers and Texas and Wisconsin, right? You got to do your homework on LSU on offense as well, and some of the things they did. There's plenty of stuff and there's plenty of time. So what you don't know and the uncertainty, you have all summer to find your best way to figure it out and prepare your team.
Mario, with Ruben Bain, just what changes have you seen going into his junior season and differences, or what you kind of expect out of him?
Ruben's approach to the offseason was awesome. You know, he made it a point to get down to 275 pounds and lean up, become more explosive, and stay healthy. Last year, obviously, we lost him, I think, play number 2, and didn't get him back till game 5. And as you saw, as a freshman, he was one of the more impactful freshmen in the country. This system allows him to play fast and free. He's extremely intelligent. He's able to coach the guys around him as well. And his effort levels, his levels of leadership and just culture have really taken another step. We've seen it in practice on a daily basis, and we expect an awesome year out of Ruben Bain.
All right, what's the energy you're seeing from the players as they switch now to game prep?
Again, I think here it's so competitive, or it's becoming more and more competitive to the point where, I mean, when we're playing out there, it feels like a game. It feels like, you know, and they want to make it that way. For our players, the goal is to make it so that the best team we play all year is the team that we face on our practice field, okay? And do you ever really get there? You know, you never know. You just pour every ounce of effort and every ounce of preparation into that. So you see that on a daily basis. And, you know, yesterday we had a chance to practice at Hard Rock, and it was great to be there. And the intensity levels were high, but they've been high all along. And honestly, as the season goes on, that's what we expect out of our players. That's another step for Miami, right? We talk about taking steps every year. One step is to make sure that we don't treat one opponent up here and lower those expectations and standards for the next one. So hope that answers the question.
How do you anticipate the atmosphere will be like? Dan talked a bit about season tickets and the crowd and the orange out and all those things, but what do you anticipate Sunday night's going to be like?
Should be as maniacal as, you know, a Miami game should be. You know, I think there's a lot of us here that have experienced those games from the Orange Bowl to Hard Rock and whatnot, and we expect it to be as loud and as wild as it could possibly get. And we encourage that tremendously.
Having a player-led team is critical to success of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Who would you say has kind of emerged as your local leaders coming out of camp?
I think Akeem Mesidor has taken the biggest step. I think him and Inez Cooper, they play off each other. Now they're always trying to knock each other around. One's at guard, one's at end, but you know, you end up colliding, right? And to that point, I think it's worth pointing out the benefit of having great alumni, a guy like John Vilma, who lives, locally, who had an opportunity to address the team and the importance of making it a player-led team, of the accountability that comes with that, and what it really means on a daily basis. Not by name, not by title, not by post or tweet, but what it really demands and commands of a team that's led by its own players. So those two guys really stick out. I think Carson, in a short amount of time, has really shown that. Mark Fletcher has really shown that. Francis Mayanoa has shown that. Ruben has shown that. I think both Wesley and Mo have. Poyser's EP, he's come along in a big-time way. And now you see, guys like OJ, Frederic stepping up as well. So all in all, it's built. It's been building throughout January all the way up until now, and we're seeing some really good returns.
You have a change of kicker, obviously, but not just that, just broadly, how do you feel about where special teams are, how those units are setting up?
We feel good. We feel really good about the kicker. We invested a lot of time and effort into scouting that part and why we went that direction with a couple of guys and really a third guy battling it out. and we're really close there on making that decision. We feel great about the operation itself, the protection, the snap, the hold. Same thing on the punt team, about the protection, about the coverage that goes with that. Our biggest issue last year with kickoff coverage, right? We allowed 2, and that really hurt us. We won the games, but certainly could have avoided it or prevented us from winning those games. So I think our coverage units, 2 things: better talent, more big, big runners, big strikers, being able to get down the field, and ball placement. The accuracy of ball placement is critical for that part as well. Our return game, we'll see. We've got some guys that have been taking reps at the different return spots, and they seem capable of certainly helping us get better.
Mario, a lot of talk in the secondary about all the new guys you brought in, but O.J. Frederick, one of your returners who played pretty well last year. What did you see from him last year, and what strides has he made throughout spring and fall camp as he gets ready for year 2?
Yeah, he came in with a lot to prove. And being a big, long, physical guy that can run, we saw what we saw when he was here in camp. I think he surprised, or he took everybody by surprise with the level at which he played at. He's a guy that really can do everything in your system. He can play man coverage, he can play zone, he can play off, he can play force, he can play the nickel spot, play safety. He is a really good tackler. He's a guy that could set the edge as well. Those guys are hard to find, and a guy that's now approaching, he's well over 190, probably between 90 and 200. It makes him that much more of a physical presence.
Ian Radakovich said the team's building your image from the lines on out. Where are you with the lines right now? I mean, you've seen how big these guys are, the progression in the last few years. Are we ready to contend for big play right now?
Where are we with the lines? Certainly, it's looking a lot like I guess where I'm at, I'm tired of praising them a little bit, because that's not what they expect from myself or from our coaching staff. I think because they are self-motivated, they're driven, they're self-starters, and you know what the best part about them is? They let us push them. They let us push them like our coaches pushed us here, where every single day you felt like, man, this is hard. And it's good hard, because every day they're making ground, and every day they're finding ways to break through. So we feel great about them as competitors, as people, as performers. And we also feel great about getting more out of them, and them understanding that there's more in them to give.
Do you have a sense for how this team responds to adversity, or do you find out about that in game 1?
Man, I don't think you close the book on that until the final chapter of the year, quite honestly. So many times a scrimmage, a game, particularly early in the season, it's so easy to jump to conclusions, but you know what? Fatigue will set in, right? Injuries set in. Depth chart moves, right, kick in as well, and all those things require some type of competitive response. And we are driven by a common goal. Everyone has individual goals, but this team is very purpose-driven, and they want to win. And I think because of that, we feel confident that their responses in the tough situations will be legitimate ones of a winning football team. Now, that being said, a lot of these guys have played a lot of football, okay? And I think they are surrounded by some very young, talented guys that they haven't flinched out there, And now, going forward, there's only one way to find out how they'll perform out under the lights, is put them out there and let them go play.
Anything else for Coach?
Good. All right. Guys, thank you.
Coordinator Shannon Dawson. Are there any questions for Coach Dawson?
Shannon, last year you obviously had the top offense in the country, but there was a lot of improvisation, a lot of creativeness on the fly. You'd call the play, it'd get switched at the line, you know, on and on and on and on. This year is a whole different personnel set. It's going to be different. How big of an adjustment is it for you to go back to kind of what you've known your whole football coaching career and go back to like traditional offense?
Yeah, I mean, I'll disagree with a little bit of what you said. I mean, I get I get what you're trying to say, but that's the plays you remember, the flashy ones. The majority of our offense was very put the ball in play, run the ball efficiently, throw an in cut, throw a replacement. And every now and again, we'd do something like off color, but that's what everybody remembers. Like I would say that 95% of our offense was pretty routine. You know what I mean? 90 to whatever percent of it. It's just not what people remember. And anytime you do something like that's unbelievable, then it's like, oh, you do that all the time. Well, that's not necessarily true. There was a couple plays in some games that were like, you know, that really stood out. But the majority of stuff we did was very routine. And I would say that most of what we did was very routine. And so we're going to stay right down that track. I mean, our offense is very systematic. You know, we do what we do. We're going to obviously add some things in the offseason that I deem fit what we do, that makes us better every year, because you got to constantly evolve. You got to figure out, you know, what can we do to build on the previous year of what our identity was. And so we're in a good place right now with, you know, with what I feel like is a good core identity offensively. I mean, we have a lot of returning guys up front, and they are, even last year, you know, they were the reason we were successful was because we could protect, we could run the ball efficiently, and do all the rest. So it's going to be no different this year.
Do you feel like this group has shown you they can execute the routine stuff from what you've seen in camp?
I mean, in practice, yeah, but I mean, that's a completely different, you know, animal. You know, we got to see it done in games, and that's what I'm eager to see these guys play in games. I mean, they've shown a lot of good things in practice, you know, and so there's a lot of new faces out there, and I get, you know, that, you know, the experience here, you know, we got some guys that's played a lot of ball other places, but overall experience as our group is lacking at some positions. But what I see in practice is very, you know, very good. Now, again, you know, they got to do it in a game. And, you know, the first game is obviously the first game. There's other elements in the first game because the team we're playing is very good on defense. One of the better defensive units I've seen, very physical. Their D-line is as good as advertised. Their linebackers trigger. Their corners are very good cover guys. I mean, there's a very solid defense with very good, smart players, and that play extremely hard. And so, you know, we're going to have to execute against a very talented group.
Speaking of, like, how difficult is it to have the first game of the year be against, you know, these talented guys that they have in the secondary, especially when you're bringing in a mix of transfers, guys who haven't played a ton. Just how difficult is it for everyone to kind of match up against a really tough opponent like that?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's their first game too, and so, you know, first games are first games. I mean, there's going to be good plays. There's going to be plays we got to overcome. We got to have a really good ball security night because that's one thing that sticks out with them is they do a really good job of taking the ball away, and they're very opportunistic and when they take it away. And so we have to protect the ball, and we have to execute offensive football, play to play, which what we stress every day. And so I don't know if really that matters as much because it is both teams' first game. I would anticipate Hard Rock being a Hard Rock that I've probably never seen, and I'm excited about that too because I think that's going to be our helping hand, obviously, and we're excited about that.
Obviously, with JoJo, I mean, he's an incredibly talented player, but I know he was banged up last year. Like, you know, how has he kind of put this opportunity, how has he kind of handled the chance to have this kind of opportunity this year to really get a big chance to play after last season?
Yeah, I mean, look, he's waited his turn. He's worked hard.
I mean, he earned everything he's going to get. And so he's a very talented guy. I would say that, you know, unlike last year a little bit, I mean, I think that you're going to see a lot of different people out there. I think we're going to have the ability to rotate. I feel very comfortable and a handful of guys to play. And so I do think that the identity of our offense will be a little bit different last year in the sense of, like, there will be more guys out there playing. Last year wasn't the case because we were so top heavy, but our depth right now is much better than it has been since I've been here. And so it's obviously all about trust, putting people on the field, and I do trust more guys to play right now than I have since I've been here. So I'm excited about that too.
You know how Carson, with how long he's waited to get back from his injury and not being in spring and then finally in fall. As you guys get closer to the season opener, have you sensed any extra, whether it's an edge or a fire in him as you get closer, or is he still the same Carson as you've seen since he got here?
I mean, there's no extra. I mean, look, I mean, he knows he's got a lot to prove, and so he's also proved a lot, if that makes sense. And I don't think a lot of that gets talked about, but I mean, he's played a lot of football. He's played in big games. That's nothing new for him. And so he's very even keel and calm on a day-to-day basis. Now, is there a fire? You're damn right there's a fire. And that comes out, obviously, when me and him are having our talks or whatever. But we're gonna keep that where it is. And we do understand, and he understands, that this game is played over a period of time, and it is truly all about giving every play its lifespan. And I'm not expecting or asking him to be anything other than what he is. And so, and I did the same thing last year. I mean, we don't need Superman every play. We need efficient, good offensive football, good decision making, very accurate intermediate pass game. And look, you know, you got 10 guys around you that are pretty good. Like, depend on those guys, right? Everybody depends on each other.
Shannon, just as a coordinator, what's your philosophy been, even now or over the years, of this is my system, this is how I want to run the offense? When a quarterback comes in, they fit into your system, or how much do you adjust to what the quarterback does well? You've spoken about Carson and Cam too, but
Yeah.
and has that changed over the years for you, or your experience?
Yeah, it has. I mean, look, I do think that we have a pretty solid system of what we do. Now, does that stay the same year to year? No, it doesn't, because we do studies in the off season. We do have different players year to year too, and everybody has a certain comfort level of what they like to do. You know, so, but I do believe in programming a quarterback mentally into our offense first. Like, that's what I do initially when I get a freshman quarterback or a transfer quarterback, you know, because programming is the most important to me. Meaning that how a quarterback views every play. Meaning, like, this is my progression. I never get caught in a surprise. I know where to go with the football. So every play has a clear-cut plan of action, right? So that's initially what I do with everybody. Now, ultimately, once you get to know each other, there is conversations about, like, hey man, like, I really like this, I don't like this as much. And so to say that I don't gravitate that way would be a lie, you know, but every quarterback I've had is the same. Like, once you get them and they've earned that role, you want to do the things that they're very comfortable with. And that's no different week to week, you know. So when you put a game plan together, I mean, you're starting off with a certain set of plays or a certain set of ideas. And then towards the end of the week, you have conversations with them, even on a weekly basis, about, hey, like, what do you not feel good about in this particular game plan? And there's typically 2 to 3 plays where they're like, man, you know, what they do defensively, I think I might get stuck with the ball on this play, or I don't have a clear-cut plan about a certain, you know, look they give on this play. So we'll just throw those plays out, you know. So in a way, I'm telling you the big picture, but it also is a week-to-week picture too. Does that make sense? Like, we have those conversations as the week goes, and it's like, man, I just, you know, I feel real good about this, but I don't feel certain about that. Well, then heck, man, we throw that out and we roll, you know, because ultimately they're the ones out there playing, not me. And so I have to, you know, their comfort level is the most important.
As a new defensive coordinator, he hasn't been a DC in 5 years or so. What type of challenge does that pose to you? Do you go back and watch that?
We have. I mean, we've watched all the film that he's been a part of, and so, and ultimately, I will tell you that I really don't know. You know, I mean, there's going to be a part of this game that, at the beginning specifically, that we're going to have to figure out exactly what their mentality is on defense. I mean, the head coach, obviously, Marcus is a defensive guy, so I think that like he will obviously have some input on keeping, like they were really good on defense last year, so they're probably not gonna, you know, deviate very far away from what they're doing. They're really good at it, and typically good defenses stay the course on things like that. But to think that there's not gonna be wrinkles that he likes is probably, you know, crazy to think of. So there's gonna be things that he does that we're just going to try to figure out through the course of the first 2 or 3 or 4 drives. And there's always going to be some surprises in the first game. You know, they've had an off season too, and so I anticipate, you know, some third down stuff or some off schedule stuff that'll be a little bit different. And so we'll have to adjust to it. No different than really every game, but this one's a little different because it's a new DC, and you know he hasn't been a DC in a little bit, so it's like, you know, trying to figure out what his identity is, you know, probably not going to know until Sunday.
Malachi Tony inside and outside in the slot this week?
Dude, I didn't hear what you said.
Can we expect to see Malachi Tony both outside and in the slot this week?
I would expect to see people lined up in a lot of different places.
And the other true freshmen?
Which one?
Are there any other true freshmen you expect to play?
Yeah. I mean, I would anticipate a lot of people playing.
You've had success in these premier early season games. So last year against Florida, game 1, right? And then game 2, understand it was Texas A&M. You've had a lot of offensive success in those games. Different personnel, different defenses and teams you're facing. Are there common traits that you think led to those successes? Because clicking that quickly is, I assume, difficult.
I mean, I think you got to do what you do good. You know, I think people overthink things the first game because you have a lot of time, and you know, look, we've known who we're playing the game one for a long time, all summer and all camp, and so you can fall under the trap of like chasing a lot of ghosts when you have a lot of time. And so ultimately, I've done it long enough to know that like things that we've been doing good in camp, regardless of the defense that we're playing, then that's the stuff I'm gonna do. Because that's what our kids have executed, that's what our guys feel comfortable with, and ultimately, regardless of the defense we're playing, I'm gonna do those things that we're doing good in camp. And I think that has a lot to do with early season success, is I really don't try to chase like a lot of things that the other team's doing. I focus a lot more on us and what we've been doing well through camp, and typically that's what makes it on the play call sheet. It's those plays we've been repping really for a month, you know.
You do have a lot of young guys that are going to be out there, and you know, it's an old cliche. It's when the lights go on. How are they going to perform when the lights go on? It's different than Green Tree, obviously. What does that mean in your scheme, your offense?
You know, I mean, that's a question mark every time you play new players. You know, I mean, it is what it is. Now, I do think that we preach about, look, you know, a football play is a football play. And so it doesn't matter if there's 70,000 people, 80,000 people, or nobody. You know, so if you can take it down to the least common denominator of like, hey, what's my job? You know, now ultimately there's emotions that go into games, there's all kind of stuff, right? Trying to block those emotions out and stay focused on your job is the most important thing. And I think it goes back to what I was telling him. That's why a lot of times in those situations, if you go back to things that you have a lot of banked reps at doing, then typically when they go out in those situations and they have a lot of banked reps of doing it, then it'll show up on game day because they've done it so much, they just revert back to their training, they revert back to, hey, I've ran this a lot of times, I know the looks, I know the adjustments, and I'm just gonna run and execute the play. And so those are the kind of things I think about when you're playing new players, is like, hey, do things that they've done well, and do things that they've done well a lot. So when the game is new at the beginning of the game, you have a better chance of executing. And as the game settles in, obviously the emotions of the game kind of dissipate a little bit, and then it becomes about football. You know, at some point in the game, in every game, it becomes about football.
And how's the how's the running game look to you in fall camp?
It looks great. I mean, we have, you know, you could really close your eyes and pick out of the group of running backs, and I feel very comfortable with those guys. It's going to be running back by committee again, which I love because that position, and I've said this for a long time, that position takes a lot of abuse, and it's good to have a lot of guys at that position that can play and that you trust to play, which is ultimately the most important. You got to trust them to play, and I trust a lot of guys at that position to play. And they understand protection, they understand the physicality of the position. They all have the ability to run within our scheme at a high level. And so I'm excited about that group. I mean, the up front and the running back room are two rooms we're going to lean on heavily. And so, you know, you gotta play to your strengths.
Last time we talked, you made sure to give the offensive line room some love. With Francis specifically, seeing how he's progressed through his 3 years, just where's been the biggest growth, specifically leadership front? How's he sort of grasped that as he's gotten older and become more experienced?
I do see him being more vocal. I think that's probably the biggest deal. I mean, as a player, he's been pretty steady since he's been here, to be quite honest with you. I mean, he's a big, physical, strong guy that, you know, I mean, obviously everybody keeps getting better, but ultimately I do see him being more vocal, which we need him to be more vocal. And so, and he does a really good job of that. And really, you know, up front, you know, you have a handful of guys, honestly, that are very vocal, which is a good place to be in.
With Keelan Marion, obviously he's gotten his flowers for his performance on special teams. Just how do you view him, you know, in offense, like at receiver? Like, where do you see him, you know, outside, inside? What do you think his strengths are at receiver?
Well, the good thing about the way we've done things over the past couple of years is we move a lot of people around. So, I mean, years ago, you could sit there and say that like a receiver was truly an outside receiver and that's all he did. You really can't say that much anymore because there are so many formation adjustments that we have. We move those guys around a good bit. I do think he has a unique ability to blow the top off the cut. I mean, he has true like game breaker speed. And so, but he also, you know, a lot of times with guys like that, they struggle with like intermediate routes, and he doesn't. Like, he has the ability to run the whole route tree, which, you know, doesn't limit him, which is a good thing. You know, he can be out there in any situation, in any play call. And so he's really had a really good camp. I'm excited to watch him play.
Awesome. One to there. Thanks, Coach.
Appreciate it, guys. You got one more?
Reese, the defensive coordinator, Corey Hudson. If you have any questions for him.
Your first game in Miami, what kind of emotions go through your mind, or is it just pure business for you?
You know, I think just excited to, finally go against a different opponent. And I think just, spring football, fall camp, you go against the same opponent every day and, continue to work on the techniques and the fundamentals and build our guys. And, now we finally get a chance to go against different color jersey. But excited for the opportunity and, excited for our guys to get out there and play fast.
Can you talk about the challenge of preparing for this opponent in particular? It's a new quarterback. It's, probably going to be personnel use different than their quarterback last year. Also new receivers, just the challenge of facing these type of differences in game one.
Yeah, I think first game of the year, first couple games every year, it's, what have they done? What wrinkles do they now have built into their offense? Or what is their identity this year? How have they changed? Little tweaks. Personnel-wise, guys graduate with the transfer portal nowadays. Just trying to figure out who they're going to be. That's something early in the game we have to identify, who they're trying to get the ball to, what their strengths are, where they're trying to attack us, and then what they have changed with their style, with their structure, and, what they do offensively. But, I think they've done a great job, watching them last year and, different things they've done, how do they utilize their players and the players they return. They have a lot of really talented players that we're sure they're going to try to get the ball to.
With the new quarterback for Notre Dame making his first career stretches, how important is it for you guys on defense to keep him off ball and to try to rattle him, try to get in his head, try to do anything you can to kind of keep him from settling in?
Yeah, I think for us it's always going to be, we got to come out and, for us it's going to be we want to stop the run. Like it's always going to be we got to come out, we got to stop the run, and then we got to try to make the quarterback uncomfortable. Whether it's different pre-snap, post-snap, different players we identify. But, for us, it's we're going to try to do what we do well. And we're always going to try to make sure, we're going to try to make an offense one-dimensional than to put it in the quarterback's hands.
On that note, with the run game, just Jeremiah Love, what stands out about him? Obviously, had a really good year last year. Just we're going to be some ways. What are you guys going to have to do to try and contain him?
Yeah, the offensive line, the way the tight ends block, the way they do things in the box, and then their backfield in general. I think the guys that played last year, it's Jeremiah Love, very, very talented, runs the ball really well. He's going to make the first guy miss. He runs with power. But that backfield in general, I think, is very deep. And when you watch, like 3 to 4 guys from last year really stick out, how they play when they catch the ball in open space, how they pick up blitzes, how they set up their cuts, how they press the line of scrimmage. I think that's a position that's a huge strength. And I think, interesting to see how they come out and utilize that room in the opener.
It's obviously your first time coaching at UM. You coached in big-time environments before in the Big Ten. How important for a defense is it to feed off the crowd's energy and stuff?
I'm excited about that. Crowd noise, big play on first down or, first play of a series, third down situations. Like I'm real excited about, feeling the crowd behind us and the excitement that, behind Miami football right now. And, we want it to be as loud as it possibly can be out there. So.
How has Motori adjusted to things? How's he just moving around in general in fall camp and just fitting in?
Yeah, he's doing a really good job. I think in general, different guys that we brought in, I think, to get the togetherness of the locker room right now. Like the guys are competing together, they're watching film together, they're constantly working on things. And I think, he's a guy that's come in. The linebacker room took him in right away. The defense took him in. And I think, he's playing really fast in the defense. Some things have changed defensively with scheme. But, I think, he has a pretty good understanding of the style of play that we have. And I think some of those guys in the room are really pulling up everyone around them. And I'm excited about seeing them play together.
Been a little bit of a whirlwind for you, coming into a new program, new personnel, bringing in more personnel, going through spring practice camp. As you get here now to game week, is there like a state of calm in terms of what you've gotten done and your comfort level with the personnel that you have?
Yeah, I think like spring football was who are we? Early in camp, it's okay, what are we good at? Where are our strengths, where are our weaknesses? And right now, it's you go through a camp and you go through a couple scrimmages and you go through a lot of different practice situations. And, especially with us, we're playing a lot of different guys together. We're rotating our guys, playing different linebackers with different safeties or different D-line groups, and constantly trying to, have different guys compete together and try to figure out the pieces. And, I think right now is the best we've communicated, the fastest we're playing. I think the guys are getting really comfortable working together with each other every single rep. And that's the fun part every year, is finding out what our identity is and who we are. And I think our guys right now are starting to play really fast. We're excited about it.
What have been your impressions of OJ Frederick? I mean, he's one of the few returners from the secondary that's had a lot of turnover. Just your thoughts on him as you've gotten known throughout spring and fall?
Yeah, like watching the film from last year, his coverage ability, how, a guy that's very confident, a guy that plays fast, plays with very good technique. And then, he's still building on that. Like, I'm excited about this year because, he had a really good year last year, and now I think he's a better player. I think he constantly is working on his game. He's watching film, he's studying, he's trying to fix his weaknesses and trying to maximize his strengths. And I think, he's a guy that's going to continue to get better all the way through, and I think he's had a really good camp so far, and I'm really excited to see him get going here in the fall.
Have you made a decision, booth or sideline, where you're going to call the game?
We'll keep working on that one. So.
With the quarterbacks, I guess, how much is there any separation, or how much separation is there between the ones and twos? Like, how confident do you feel in, multiple layers of depth, I guess?
Yeah, we're going to play a lot of guys. You're going to see, whether it's in the front seven or in the back, you're going to see a lot of different guys. You're going to see a lot of different guys in different spots. But I'm very comfortable with our depth, in a lot of our areas. And you'll see, situationally or normal downs, you're going to see different guys in there. And, especially like the corner spot, you've seen a lot of guys step up and make some really big time plays in camp, handle some different situations, handle their isolated one-on-ones or have good understanding of underneath coverage. And that's a room that's really stepped up so far.
What do you need from Ruben Bain this season? What do you feel like he can, what all do you think you need from him?
The biggest thing, I just want him to play fast and, not think too much, not try to make too many plays. I think if he just does his job every single play, and, he's a guy that in practice, you don't have to say anything. He shows up every day prepared. He watches the film. He knows the scheme. He understands what his job is, what his technique is, and he plays with high effort every single snap. And that's really what it is. It's, for us on defense, we need all 11 guys to do their job. Every single snap, stay within the scheme, play fast, play with good technique. And he's a guy that does, he attacks every day's practice with exactly that. He comes out, and every once in a while you see a mistake and we'll get it cleaned up, but he's a guy that learns quickly from the mistakes. He's constantly working to get better, whether it's setting the edge or, doing something with a movement or his one-on-one and pass rush or his contained technique. And, he's constantly playing faster and faster, and that's all we need to see is just every play 100 miles an hour. Play with good technique, play with good pad level, and knock the line of scrimmage back.
Do you feel like you have the personnel to be as multiple as you would like?
Yeah, that always depends on, health, opponent, what packages they're in, what their style of play is. And I think, we have a lot of good pieces right now that we can move around to handle different things. And, that's one thing where, in camp, some of the stuff you have to do is simulated. You may not see that from your offense or from the other side of the ball. So some of that stuff maybe we haven't seen full speed yet or 100 miles an hour yet at us. But I think our guys have adjusted to different things, different looks, different styles. Now they're starting to communicate really well in those different pitches. And I think we have, like I said, I think our depth, I think we have good depth, which allows us to handle different, whether it's a different personnel grouping, a different style of formation, different style of run scheme, or in the pass game, which I think allows us to have more position flexibility with some guys.
Is game one, coaches often talk about tackling. You find out in game one. How do you view game one tackling in general?
I know last year I think we missed 22 in the first one where I was. So that's been in, it's tackling circuit every day. It's the technique. It's the different styles that we tackle with. We've always taught press the hip, and then we're bite the ball, we're wrap and roll, and we're sweep the ankle. And that's been what we've preached from day one all the way through spring football. But it's hard. You can't live tackle a lot in practice, especially with limited numbers and the way that the rules are. So to us, it's just we want to play fast. And we don't press the hip. We want to take the air out, and we're going to try to go attack. We're going run through the hip, and we're not going to break down, we're not going to settle, and that's where the swarm is so important. And it's the style that we play where we need 11 hats swarming to the ball no matter what. It could be perimeter screen game, it could be quick game, it could be perimeter run, just quarterback leaving the pocket. We need to make sure our guys are playing fast and swarming, because especially when you play a team, like we open with, where they're going to make us miss, or we're going to have a missed tackle at some point, or something's going to happen where a guy's going to cut back, and we got to make sure we get 11 hats to the ball every single play. And I feel like week one or whatever week it is, that's always the thing that erases it. It's got to be our how physical we play, and then how fast we swarm to the ball, how fast we run to the ball. That'll erase any mistakes that we have, whether it's a missed tackle or a mental error at any given play.
How do you feel the middle of the interiors come together for you? There were some question marks there.
Yep.
Going into the spring and fall.
Yeah, I think interior right now, I think we're playing really well. We got some guys that are really stout. They move well laterally. They get vertical off the ball. And I think that's been, something in practice. We've knocked the line of scrimmage back a little bit. And then, I think with our ability, our athletic ability and our twitch, I think we got some guys that can move. And, you can get vertical, and the next time you can move. And I think we have a good group of guys that you can rotate in there, which is always the number one thing, like who's the next guy in the game there. And I think, for us, we're still going through right now who are the two guys that are running out the first series. I think we had a couple guys that are pretty deep that we can run out there the second series, the third series, or, if they extend the series, rotate within. And, and then at linebacker also, that's been one of the things, like developing in the weight room this offseason, trying to get a little bit bigger, trying to knock plays back a little bit more. Because like we always feel like you see like the offense going to push the pile. I think that's something we'll see this week, and we got to make sure we're knocking the ball back. We're winning the line of scrimmage, and then when we tackle, we got to make sure we're knocking things backwards. So a 2nd and 8 doesn't become a 2nd and 5, and that's something we've really worked on this preseason camp.
And the young linebackers, you got a couple good-looking freshmen. Are they ready to play?
Yeah, we got some guys. I think situationally, we have some guys that normal downs I think are ready to go. Play fast, and then I think other guys are more maybe package situations right now, where you might see him on a 3rd down, or you might see him on an off track. But we have guys that are constantly developing. They're constantly, I always feel like a smarter football player is a better football player. And we have guys that are really starting to understand the game a little bit. You can see early in camp it might have been moving fast, and now you can kind of see them settling, getting aligned, knowing where their eyes need to be, understanding what their job is, communicating with the guys around them. And settling in and playing faster and just being more comfortable right now within, a fast tempo style of play. And, there's still little mistakes that we're trying to correct, and that's always part of the process as younger guys learn. But I think as, this week and as the season continues to go, I think you're going to see more guys in different situations playing on the field for us, especially in that linebacker room.
Or third down situational stuff that you guys have done in practice, how does it look to you? And again, what kind of keys getting off the field? What's the messaging that you're giving your guys?
Yeah, I think we've put guys in different situations. I think up front, letting our guys get off the ball a little bit. And then, in the back end, I think some of the different coverages, we really try to mix it up in camp, try to find out where our strengths are, where our weaknesses are, whether it's some zone coverage, dropping different guys or playing some man. And the hardest thing I've learned is trying to defend our offense is a nightmare. So some of those guys over there, trying to defend them in space. But, I think our guys are playing faster. They're understanding the concepts. They're understanding the leverage that they need to play, within the zone or man technique and where their depths need to be as they drop. And then the one thing I'm, different guys working off the football and winning one-on-ones up front is an area I think we've really improved. And I think whether it's guys from the 2nd level or guys walked up on the line of scrimmage, that's an area where I think we're getting to the quarterback faster in that area. That's one of those things going against a veteran offensive line in the opener. We got to continue that. Now happens fast, against a different color jersey.
Anything else? Great, thank you.
All right, thank you guys.